Hi, Scorpio. Welcome to Eternal Mindfulness. This isn't just another horoscope video. This is your cosmic transmission. A dangerous shift awaits. Stay alert, because April 6th could change everything. Let me ask you something right from the start. Have you felt the undercurrent lately? That subtle but persistent sense that something is about to happen, something invisible but intense, like a storm gathering just beyond the veil? That feeling is real. It's not random. It's not a coincidence. It's your intuition. And it brought you here for a reason. The universe doesn't speak in noise, it whispers. And if you've made it to this very moment, then trust me, you were meant to hear what's coming. You're not here because you clicked a title. You're here because your soul already sensed the energy of April 6th. And now, it's time to listen. This is not about fear. It's about awakening. Because what's dangerous isn't always destructive. Sometimes it's what pushes us out of the cycle, out of the stagnation, and into power. Scorpio, you're standing at a spiritual threshold. You feel it, don't you? The version of you that's been buried beneath survival instincts, broken trust, silent suffering, is ready to rise. The shift coming isn't gentle. It's transformational. And it doesn't ask for your permission, it asks for your participation. In today's reading, we'll unlock the tarot's message, decode the signs from the stars, and look directly into the deeper meaning behind this cosmic turning point. We'll explore what this energy means for your relationships, your finances, your career path, your physical well-being, and most importantly, your soul's evolution. But before we dive in, I want to pause and thank you. Truly. For being here. For sharing your energy with this space. Every like, every comment, every time you hit subscribe, it creates a ripple of intention that reaches far beyond the screen. Your support empowers this channel and allows Eternal Mindfulness to continue delivering messages that are meant to guide, heal, and transform. And for that, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And Scorpio, believe me when I say, you'll want to stay until the very end today. Because what the universe is about to reveal is something you've been waiting for. Maybe not consciously. But deep down, you've always known, this moment would come. Now, let me ask you, what brought you here today? Was it a dream you couldn't forget? A whisper in your mind? A sudden pull towards something you couldn't explain? That was your higher self. Guiding you. If you feel it too, that inner confirmation that this message was meant for you, then comment the number 11 below. Just 11. A sacred number of alignment, intuition, and spiritual awakening. Let it be your silent yes to the universe. Take a deep breath now. Let go of everything you think you know. The shift is already underway. But here's the truth, you're not powerless. You've never been. You are the storm and the calm. The darkness and the light. And as we step into the energies of April 6 together, remember, this is the moment where everything begins to change. Let's begin. There are moments in life when silence speaks louder than words, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence that arrives just before a great unfolding. If you've been feeling more sensitive lately, if your emotions have been shifting like tides without warning, if your dreams have become vivid, repetitive, or even unsettling, you're not alone. This isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something is awakening within you. Scorpio, your sign is attuned to hidden layers of reality, and when a shift is near, you often feel it first, not through logic, but through the body, the breath, the dreamscape. You might wake up remembering symbols that seem to make no sense, or sense a growing tension in the chest that words can't quite describe. This is not coincidence. In the language of astrology, this is how energy moves before it takes form, through feeling, through intuition, through the realm of the unseen. As April 6th approaches, the planetary currents are activating your deeper psychic centers. Mars, your co-ruler, is agitating dormant patterns that have long lived in the subconscious. Patterns about self-protection, control, vulnerability, and trust. And these patterns are surfacing now not to break you, but to be released, like sediment rising in a river before the water clears. The more resistance we offer to these internal signals, the more turbulence we create. But when we allow ourselves to observe instead of react, when we gently acknowledge the fear, the confusion, the longing, we begin to untangle the knots we didn't even know we were carrying. There's a beautiful lesson passed down in many wisdom traditions, that everything arises from the mind, and the way we perceive is the way we create. This doesn't mean denying your feelings or forcing yourself to be positive. It means pausing long enough to listen. That tension in your body might be pointing you toward a truth you've avoided. That recurring dream could be your inner self begging for clarity. Those sudden waves of emotion. Perhaps they're not irrational, but rather ancient, finally ready to be seen and softened. This is why journaling your dreams, tracking intuitive hits, or simply writing down 3 things you just know, without evidence, becomes a sacred act. Not because it's magical, but because it's mindful. It returns you to yourself. We live in a world that often tells us to override instinct, to silence that quiet voice within. But Scorpio, you are the sign of depth. Your power lies not in escaping discomfort, but in diving into it with courage and awareness. And while the external world may remain unchanged for now, something fundamental is already shifting inside you. Think of it like the first tremor before the mountain stirs. Small, almost imperceptible, but undeniable. The shift that awaits you isn't just about new circumstances, it's about becoming the kind of person who can hold space for transformation. That is your real preparation. That is your real strength. So, if you find yourself wondering why you've been more emotional, more intuitive, more unsettled lately, know this: you're not unraveling. You're reweaving. Pay attention to what's surfacing now. Write it down. Reflect. Be kind to your own inner tides. Something is rising, and you are being asked to rise with it, not by force, but by choice. Let this be the beginning of a new inner clarity, one that will carry you through whatever the outside world may bring. Sometimes, the signs that a shift is happening don't appear in the stars or dreams, they emerge in the body. After tuning into the subtle inner whispers and emotional undercurrents, you might notice something heavier settling into your physical self. Maybe your shoulders feel like they've been carrying more than they should. Maybe sleep no longer restores you the way it used to. Maybe your thoughts loop more often, and your breath feels shallow without you realizing it. These aren't random inconveniences. They're messages. And like all messages from within, they grow louder when ignored. What many don't realize is that our bodies are not separate from our minds. They are the mirror of them. When thoughts pile up without pause, when emotions are tucked away without release, the body begins to carry what the heart can't hold. Fatigue, tension, digestive imbalances, restlessness. These can all be gentle nudges asking us to stop, reset, and breathe again with awareness. This is especially true for Scorpio right now, as the energetic pressures surrounding April 6th are activating not just your intuitive core, but also your physical resilience. The body becomes the place where unresolved stress looks for release. On an astrological level, the current planetary alignments are stirring up themes related to control and surrender, two things Scorpio is deeply familiar with. But here's the truth, sometimes, holding on takes more energy than letting go. That includes the inner narratives you repeat, the pressures you place on yourself to stay strong, and the subtle way you absorb the emotions of others without realizing it. Scorpio energy is known for being the emotional deep-sea diver of the Zodiac. But even the strongest diver needs to come up for air. There's a wisdom found in stillness that's often overlooked. The practice of slowing down, not as avoidance, but as medicine, is one of the most powerful acts of self-respect you can offer. It's in the pause that clarity emerges. It's in the moment you stop scrolling, overthinking, reacting, that you allow space for calm to return. That's not weakness. That's alignment. Ancient teachings remind us that the way we treat the body directly influences the clarity of the mind. If the body is treated with care, the mind follows. And when the mind is clear, our actions become more rooted, more conscious, and more compassionate. It's not about chasing peace, it's about removing what disrupts it. That could be as simple as stepping away from constant stimulation, too much screen time, conversations that drain you, content that triggers fear or comparison, and choosing instead to return to what nourishes: rest, hydration, movement, nature, silence. You don't need a grand healing ritual to begin. Sometimes, all it takes is one quiet morning where you stretch instead of scroll. One evening where you listen to your breath instead of pushing through your to-do list. One decision to put your hand on your heart and whisper, "I'm here, and I'm listening." This is the foundation for real change, not in the stars, but in your cells. It's not dramatic, but it's deeply impactful. And as the storm of transformation approaches, this grounded awareness will be your anchor. It will keep you steady when things feel chaotic. It will remind you that healing isn't something you chase, it's something you allow. So if you're feeling the heaviness, the exhaustion, the mental fog, don't see it as weakness. See it as wisdom. Your body is not betraying you. It's guiding you back to balance. Trust it. Breathe into it. And when in doubt, repeat softly to yourself, "I release what no longer serves me, and I inhale the breath of renewal." Not everything that feels like a setback is meant to stop you. Sometimes, it's a necessary rerouting, a cosmic pause that opens a door you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. If you've been sensing instability in your finances, experiencing uncertainty at work, or watching a long-standing project lose momentum, don't rush to label it as failure. It may be the beginning of something far more aligned with who you're becoming. Right now, the energy surrounding Scorpio is charged with recalibration. There's a distinct friction between old systems and new pathways. And while it may feel like things are slipping through your fingers, what's actually happening is a release of anything built on outdated values or unsustainable effort. The weight you feel isn't punishment, it's gravity shifting, asking you to stop pushing in a direction that no longer reflects your truth. This is a turning point disguised as discomfort. In astrology, we look at the influence of planetary transits on themes like money, career, and personal freedom. And at this moment, those energies are converging in a way that signals both risk and potential. The Ace of Pentacles appears as a symbol of opportunity, but one that must be claimed, not waited for. It doesn't promise instant results. Instead, it offers fertile ground, a new beginning in the material world that requires your trust and willingness to plant something new. Then comes the Fool, not as recklessness, but as faith in motion. This card is an invitation to leap into uncharted territory with eyes open and heart light. It reminds us that starting over doesn't mean starting from scratch. You carry your experience with you, and sometimes it's that very experience that makes you ready for the next level. So if you're facing decisions about money, work, or long-term plans, let this be your moment of honesty. Ask yourself, am I choosing this because it feels safe, or because it feels right? When you're too rooted in fear, every choice seems risky. But when you return to presence, you realize that uncertainty isn't inherently negative. It's the birthplace of all possibility. There's also a deeper layer here, one that reflects ancient teachings. Freedom doesn't begin when you have more, it begins when you need less. That doesn't mean you should stop striving or give up on abundance, quite the opposite. It means redefining what abundance looks like. Is it more income, or more time? Is it material gain, or peace of mind? Wealth takes many forms, and when you can move toward it with clarity instead of scarcity, the opportunities you attract will reflect your inner alignment. This is why the energetic color of this phase is deep red, not only the color of material strength and grounding, but also of regeneration. Just as blood carries life, red represents the vital force that allows us to rise again, to rebuild after disruption, to step boldly into the unknown with power and presence. Instead of fearing what's falling away, consider what it's making room for. What if the deal that didn't go through was saving you from a long-term compromise? What if the job you're restless in is only meant to be a bridge, not a destination? What if the pause in progress is your soul calling for recalibration, to create not just income, but impact? Write it down if you feel called. I believe every disruption carries the seed of prosperity. Let this be more than a mantra. Let it be the lens through which you see the weeks ahead. You're not being left behind, you're being asked to leap forward. All you have to do now is listen, realign, and step into the space that's been waiting for you. It's often when life feels most uncertain that our relationships begin to reflect the truths we haven't yet spoken. You may have already started to notice it, conversations that suddenly turn sharp, people from the past reappearing unexpectedly, or emotional memories surfacing without warning. These are not coincidences. They're energetic responses to the shift you're going through internally. When your frequency changes, your connections recalibrate too. As the influence of April 6th intensifies, Scorpio is especially sensitive to relational shifts. With your naturally perceptive nature, you're able to feel when something's off long before it's spoken aloud. That tension you felt with someone lately? That sudden pull towards someone you thought you had let go of? Those aren't just passing thoughts, they're prompts. Indicators. They ask you not only who you're connected to, but why. This is the time to pay attention to what rises in silence. The two cards guiding this part of your journey, the Two of Cups and the Star, carry both tenderness and clarity. The Two of Cups speaks to connection, intimacy, shared emotion. It often signals mutual respect, the possibility of healing, or a love that reflects something real within you. But paired with the Star, this connection isn't just about another person, it's about who you become in their presence. Does this bond help you rise into your better self? Or does it hold you in versions you've already outgrown? There's a quiet teaching found in reflective traditions that says, true relationship begins not when you seek someone to complete you, but when you start meeting others from a place of inner fullness. When you no longer look for someone to save you, but to walk beside you, fully, freely. That's what this current energy is revealing. Any imbalance, unspoken resentment, dependency, or avoidance is being brought to light not as punishment, but as a call for honesty. And honesty here doesn't always mean confrontation. Sometimes, it simply means being willing to sit with what you feel. To ask, is this love making me stronger, or making me smaller? Not because people must be perfect to be loved, but because you deserve to be seen clearly, and to love without losing yourself. If you're in a relationship, notice how it responds to pressure right now. Does it stretch and grow with you, or does it crack at the first sign of change? If you're single, what kind of energy have you been attracting, and why? Every interaction carries a mirror, and when you're willing to look, you can begin to change not just your connections, but your patterns. This is not about judgment, but about choice. You're allowed to outgrow old dynamics. You're allowed to desire deeper connection. You're allowed to leave behind what no longer supports your peace. And above all, you're allowed to begin again, wiser, clearer, more whole. So if an old emotion surfaces or a familiar face returns, observe what your body says before your mind rationalizes it. Feel the instinct. Listen to the pulse. Sometimes, your greatest clarity doesn't come from figuring things out, but from simply noticing what happens in the space between you and another. Love, when healthy, is expansive. It opens the chest, steadies the breath, and creates space for silence without fear. Let this be your compass in the days ahead. If it nourishes your growth, lean in. If it dims your light, release gently. Not with anger, with understanding. This is the moment to bring awareness to your relationships, not to fix anyone, but to align with what brings you closer to truth. And when you do, the kind of connection you're truly ready for will begin to find its way to you. Not because you forced it, but because you finally made room for it. Sometimes the pressure we feel in our work isn't just a result of deadlines or responsibilities, it's the soul's quiet way of asking, is this still the right path for me? As we move deeper into the energies of this current shift, the foundations of your career may begin to feel less stable. But instability doesn't always mean collapse. Often, it's the beginning of recalibration. What is no longer aligned begins to crack, not to break you, but to show you what needs rebuilding, this time, with intention. Scorpio, your work ethic is powerful. When you commit, you give everything. But the challenge now is not about effort, it's about direction. You may find yourself in a space where what once felt meaningful now feels mechanical. or where a role that once inspired you has become too small for your evolving vision. These aren't signs that you're failing, they're signals that you've outgrown an old version of purpose. And as the Seven of Wands appears in your energetic reading, it's clear that you're being asked to hold your ground, not against others, but against the temptation to shrink yourself to stay comfortable. That card speaks of resilience, of being tested, of having to stand firm even when things feel uncertain. But paired with the star, there's also a beautiful message: hope is not lost. In fact, your unique light, your inner truth, is exactly what will carry you through. The path ahead might not be clear in every detail, but it is lit by the clarity of knowing what no longer serves you. It's often said that when something no longer supports your growth, it begins to fall away naturally. That could be a job, a project, a routine, anything that no longer reflects your true values. This isn't a sign of failure. It's an invitation to reroot yourself in why you began. Take a moment to recall your original passion. What sparked that fire in you when you first started? Was it curiosity, freedom, service, creativity, or a desire to build something meaningful? Somewhere along the way, the noise of expectation and routine may have dimmed that flame, but it's still there, waiting to be fanned back into life. In practices of inner mastery, there's a teaching that says, right effort arises when you act not to achieve something external, but to align with your own integrity. That means you don't force yourself into productivity for approval, you move when the action feels true to who you are. And when your work becomes an extension of that truth, it no longer drains you. It sustains you. So if you're facing difficult decisions about your career, if something feels like it's slipping away, ask yourself, could this be a space making room for something better? Could this be the moment when I stop surviving and start creating again? Try this, write a letter to the version of yourself who has already made it. The one who is grounded in their purpose, thriving in their mission, and living in alignment. Ask them, what did I have to let go of to become you? The answer may not come immediately, but when it does, it will be clear. And it will free you. This is not about rushing to quit or forcing a dramatic leap. It's about being willing to face discomfort with awareness, to explore new options without fear, and to return to what feels deeply right. Trust that clarity comes when you stop clinging. And remember, this chapter is not the whole story. It's just the part where you remember what you're really made of. Change rarely announces itself with comfort. It often comes disguised as restlessness, as questions with no answers, as endings that feel premature. But what if everything that feels like loss is actually space being made, not for something less familiar, but for something more aligned? If you've made it this far in the video, Scorpio, then you already know, this isn't the end of something. It's the beginning of a journey you can no longer avoid, one where the destination isn't out there, but deep within. April 6th brings with it a powerful wave of renewal. Like a storm washing over a tired garden, it may feel messy at first, confusing, chaotic, even overwhelming. But its purpose is not to destroy. Its purpose is to clear the clutter. To strip away the layers that no longer fit. To make visible the roots of who you've always been, beneath everything you've had to become. And yes, at first, that clarity can feel like emptiness. Like standing in an unfamiliar space with no map. But sometimes, that's exactly what rebirth looks like, not a loud breakthrough, but a quiet moment of realization, I can't go back to who I was, because I'm not that person anymore. The Fool appears now, not as a warning, but as a guide. A symbol of what's possible when you step forward without needing every answer. When you trust the step itself to teach you something the map never could. You may not know exactly where you're going next, and that's okay. What matters most is that you're willing to go. With your heart open. With your fears acknowledged, but not in control. With a belief, however small, that something better exists beyond the limits of what you've outgrown. So I ask you this: what are you ready to release so you can rise? What would happen if, just for today, you stopped fighting the discomfort and started following the curiosity? If you stopped waiting for certainty and started listening to your own inner readiness, that quiet knowing that now is the time? You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to be willing. Willing to take the first step. To trust that each moment of self-awareness, each breath of courage, each honest reflection, is a part of the becoming. You're becoming. If you felt something stir in you during this reading, if something clicked, resonated, even just a little, I'd love for you to comment below. I choose to step into the next chapter of my soul's journey. Let it be your affirmation. Your declaration. Your beginning. And if this video supported you, even in a small way, I invite you to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might also need this message. Every bit of support helps this channel grow, but more importantly, it helps this community, Eternal Mindfulness, become a space where souls like yours can feel seen, heard, and empowered to walk their true path. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for spending your time, energy, and trust here. I hope you carry this message with you beyond today, not just as inspiration, but as action. Because the truth is, Scorpio, you are more powerful than you've been told. And this shift that's unfolding? It's not here to break you. It's here to wake you up. So breathe. Take the first step. And know that everything you're becoming has already begun.